House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, meanwhile, has just dropped a bombshell about impeachment. Let's go right to our congressional correspondent, Phil Mattingly. Phil, tell our viewers what Nancy Pelosi is now saying.
Well, Speaker Pelosi has made clear now for months that people should take caution before they go down the pathway of impeachment, and now she's going in even further, saying in an interview with the Washington Post, quote, "I'm not for impeachment. This is news. I'm going to give you some news right now because I haven't said this to any press person before. But since you asked, I've been thinking about this, impeachment is so divisive to the country that unless there's something so compelling and overwhelming and bipartisan, I don't think we should go down that path because it divides the country and of the president. He's just not worth it." Now, Wolf, there's a couple things to pick out there that I think are important. First and foremost, the fact that it needs to be bipartisan. The Speaker has made that clear for a long period of time, and the reality remains that in order for impeachment to actually move through in the United States Senate, they would need no fewer than 20 Democrats to join 20 Republicans to join all Democrats to actually move that through. You put that with the idea that the Speaker in that interview also references the impeachment effort targeting Bill Clinton back in the 90s as being so politically divisive, and you kind of understand that at least at this point in time, based on the facts that she's aware of at this moment, it's not a road that she wants to go down. It's a road that she wants to kind of slam the door shut to, at least for the moment, despite many in her caucus not just calling for impeachment, but some, even to this point, Wolf, introducing resolutions to do just that.
This comes just as in the aftermath of a freshman congresswoman saying she intended to file impeachment papers against the president. Is this the Speaker's way of keeping her caucus in line?
I think it's less about keeping her caucus in line and more about running cover for her caucus. You have to keep in mind that the Democratic caucus is diverse. There, yes, are progressives, people like Rashida Tlaib, who've made very clear that they want the president to be impeached as soon as humanly possible. And there are also many, particularly those who ensured that Nancy Pelosi would become Speaker again, that Democrats would hold the majority again, who don't want to have to talk about this on a regular basis, who don't want to have to go through the fight of whether or not they would vote for impeachment, particularly if an impeachment couldn't move forward in the Senate. And I think that's where you see Pelosi's comments really kind of coming to the forefront here. More, Wolf, about protecting her own members than perhaps trying to keep some of her other members in line.
Joining us now, Democratic Congressman Jerry Connolly of Virginia. He's a member of the Oversight and Foreign Affairs Committees. Congressman, thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Let me get your reaction to this news of Nancy Pelosi saying, "I'm not for impeachment." She's flat. Bad idea for the House of Representatives, the Judiciary Committee, to begin impeachment proceedings against this president. What's your reaction?
I think Speaker Pelosi is being Speaker. I think she is lowering expectations about the prospect of impeachment and reminding people of the gravity of that move and the impact it could have politically in dividing the country. I think that's a useful thing to remind us of the fact that impeachment is a last resort in the Constitution, not a first resort.
Do you agree with the Speaker?
I wouldn't go as far as the Speaker. Frankly, if we're presented with compelling evidence that the president clearly committed impeachable offenses, then I think we have to vote for impeachment.
You think the Mueller report's going to do that?
I don't know.
Because a lot of expectations are that you guys, the Democrats, are going to be disappointed when he releases his report to the Attorney General. The Attorney General decides what to release to Congress and to the public.
Well, I think the Mueller report's certainly going to be a very important document for us in guiding us in that subject. But we have our own investigations that are underway. And so far, we've had one public hearing. So I think it's very early in the game to make a qualitative judgment as to whether this could lead to impeachment. But I think Speaker Pelosi is serving a useful purpose in setting some ground rules that you have to meet a very high bar.
But is she wrong right now to be issuing a statement like this, a flat statement, impeachment proceedings to begin in the House of Representatives, a bad idea?
I think she's setting a bar for all of us that we have to pay attention to.
Because you understand where she's coming from.
Right.
And Abby Phillip, what do you think? How significant is this declaration?
Well, I think it tells you a lot about how Pelosi sees the politics of the next several years. It seems that for some Democrats, the top priority is voting Trump out. And there has always been a concern that what will happen with Trump is what happened with Bill Clinton during his impeachment. His approval rating could go up and causing Democrats to lose out on public sentiment, which Nancy Pelosi in this same interview said is her guiding star for how she's going to be Speaker of the House. She believes that if she loses public sentiment, they will lose the entire effort here, and that they could end up inadvertently reelecting Donald Trump to a second term. So I think for Democrats, this is Nancy Pelosi trying to tell them, I know what I'm doing here. Trust me on this. We want to just go the electoral route and not try to go forward with an impeachment process that could empower Trump.
And she says, Bianna, that he's just not worth it. Why bother going through an impeachment process? In her words, he's just not worth it. What do you think?
Well, to pick up on what Abby said, she talked about the Clinton impeachment as being crippling for the nation and so divisive. And remember, this is without a president who had access to social media and every day was calling these investigations a witch hunt and presidential harassment. So I think that she sort of sees the writing on the wall when it comes to what the poll number suggests about how Americans feel about impeachment. We don't have a Mueller report at the time. And look, Nancy Pelosi is nothing if not very strategic. She wanted to put this on the record. She said it in the interview. She prefaced it by saying, I'm going to make some news right now. I've been giving this a lot of thought. And it's pretty clear that she was not only speaking to the American public, probably to the president as well, but also to her own constituents in her own caucus, because this does seem to be a divisive issue, as we know thus far.
Is she signaling, Ann, that she doesn't really believe the Mueller report is going to rise to the level of impeachment?
It's hard to say exactly, but it does feel like she's saying, given what we know now, or at least given what's been made public up to date, she doesn't see an avenue for impeachment. And I agree with what others have said, that impeachment really is an extraordinary remedy. And so I think she was careful in saying this is based on what we know today. And so she's left herself a little bit of room if there's something that so galvanizes the whole country that the Republicans and Democrats both support impeachment. I think we might see her go forward. But short of that, I think she sent a strong message about not wanting to go there.
Because, Sabrina, you know, the impeachment process begins in the House of Representatives. She's the Speaker of the House. The Democrats have the majority. You need a simple majority to impeach a president. But then it goes to the Senate for a full trial. And you need a 2/3 majority to convict the president and remove that president from office. I suspect she believes that the Republicans will never go along with this. There's not going to be a 2/3 majority. As a result, why waste everyone's time in the House?
Well, that's precisely the thinking among Democratic leaders, that even if you were to get enough support to pass something through the House, then you wouldn't have that 2/3 majority in a Republican-led Senate to convict, especially if you look at the way in which Republicans have talked about the Russia investigation. They are a lot more inclined to be deferential to the president, to sort of downplay any evidence of wrongdoing, even in the face of all of these indictments, even in the face of all of these guilty pleas. Now, where the calculus might change is if the president takes any step that is a red line for not just Democrats, but even Republicans in Congress. If he were to try, for example, to fire the special counsel, which he hasn't done, if he were to maybe pardon someone like Paul Manafort, which the White House still isn't taking off the table. But to Abby's point, right now, if you look at the public, this is something that is still very polarizing. A majority of Americans do not think at this point in time that the president should be impeached. You have seen some of those numbers go up. So again, a lot of this depends on the president's own actions in the course of the coming months. But again, they do not want to essentially potentially, I should say, hand re-election to this president.
And she's not saying, let's just treat him with kid gloves. I mean, the Democrats are engaged in an oversight process over all aspects of the president's, the administration and the president's business life, and even some aspects of his personal life that could be fodder for Democrats to do what they want to do, which is continue to investigate him, and from a political perspective, continue to weaken him.